Hello artists. Today we're going to do one of my favorite subjects. This is Bass Rocks up in Gloucester, one of my favorite spots. So we'll start in the sky with some raw sienna and then put some ultramarine blue on it. Just let it drop, let it do what it wants to do. You'll get a beautiful sky. And then we're going to do the water. The water is ultramarine and rose and phthalo green. Very beautiful colors together. They make this deep, and I paint it with that sky coming down, so you'll get a nice soft edge. There's probably too much water there. We're going to have to go back. So bring that down to near the rocks there, where it gets much more shallow there. So the color of the water is going to change. So I'm going back now and just touching that horizon line again. Bringing that down. You can see that green coming through. It's beautiful. So down in the water area, in the white area here, I'm taking some cobalt blue teal, mixing it in with that dark watercolor, and just throwing it on there. Don't try to paint around that. I just throw it. And by throwing it, what happens is you get all these nice spots of white that work so well in moving water. Then I just basically pat all the heavy water with a towel. And that leaves a nice effect of moving water and whites and some nice green. And now I threw a little tiny bit of rose in there, and that mixes with the greens and grays it down. All right, I painted the whole rocks, all the rocks here with quinacridone sienna and cad red. I just mixed some cad red in there. And now I'm dropping some ultramarine blue over the whole thing. You can see how dark it gets. But I'm not pushing it. Don't put too much pressure to mix the colors. Drop the blue on top and let it come over it. Let it, it's a little more wet. There's more water in this ultramarine blue, so it'll run down. You want it to run down and go right over the red. Okay, then we're gonna take some of that off with a credit card. We'll use a credit card or any kind of flat object, and you just squeegee it. Again, don't dig down too much. No pressure. Very, very light pressure. You're using the grain of the paper here, the texture of the paper, to get that nice effect of rocks. It gives you a really nice effect. But don't dig down because you'll damage the paper. So just go very light, and don't, you can take off all you want, because you can always go back in and paint, which we will do. There's areas that we're going to paint over again and make them dark, and you want to get those cracks and crevices in there. So have fun with this. This is really a neat thing to do and to learn and to eventually master. You get some amazing effects. If you want a realistic looking rocks, this is the way to do it. All right, nice and easy breezy. You can see how nice that looks. Yeah, so just keep going across. You can't take off too much. Just take off as much as you want. All right, so now I'm going back in. This is ultramarine with quinacridone sienna. Gives you that beautiful dark, and I'm pushing it a little bit. That looks pretty black, but I'm actually pushing it towards the sienna to keep it a little bit on the warm side. And these are the rocks down below the rocks in the front here. These are the rocks right on the water. They're getting soaking wet with each wave, so they're very dark. And there's some outside rocks there that I'm just gonna paint the whole thing dark. And I may go back later and take the credit card and put some light on it, but get a nice shape here. Okay, all right, and I'm gonna do a little more on the left here, the left side. Start to put in some of these big cracks and crevices on the rocks, and Take your time with it. You know, you can see I'm pushing the sienna a little more here, so it's dark, but it's very warm. And I know you're asking yourself, well, he just took it all off, why is he putting it back on? Well, I just like the dark look of that, and I'm not going to put it all the way across, but I like the way it looks there on the left. And I'm going to bring this all, you know, bring this all down a little more. I scraped off all that paint, but it left some nice texture there, which I want to leave. And I'm going to go across with, I have to bring it down. It's too light right now, so. But we'll have a beautiful painting in the end here. It's a beautiful scene. You know, it's a really wonderful spot on Bass Rocks. If you haven't been to Bass Rocks in Gloucester, you should take a ride there, because it's just wonderful. It's about a 1.5 mile strip on the coast, but all lined with these beautiful rocks. They're painting everywhere you look. All right, I'm going back up and painting the rocks that are up above. Just doing the whole thing dark here, and I may take some off, but I may not. There's, you know, the surf is pounding up there, and it's actually running over these rocks, and between the wetness of it and the reflections, they're very dark. All right, there's a rock, and this is sort of the center of attention here. This rock that's in the middle. It's got a beautiful side where it has two sides, and one side is getting the light. You can see I put some cad red in there to warm it up. I'm going to put some color over that, and there's a stream of surf in the middle. All right, and then on the left side of that rock, it's very dark, so ultramarine and Quincy enter again. Not getting any light, but it's getting a reflection from the water. So I put a slab of cad red in there to warm it up. It just gives it a nice core look of nice hard rock, you know, hard light, and that sense of a deep rock, you know. It's really red rocks on this section of Bass Rocks for some reason. It's just, you know, they're very red. A little drier brush here, a little less water in your mix, because you want to get those darks. All right, it's very dark here near the water that's running over. I took this is just a damp brush, a moist brush. I'm taking some, putting a little light on the top of this big rock. Mixing in that red, but you can see that red even when it dries. It's a beautiful, nice warmth in there. So I'll put a few of these smaller rocks that are floating around. It's funny, you cannot even see all that cobalt blue teal that I threw out there, but you will. Dries so light. And you can just do this randomly, you know. You can see I painted that rock. I wanted to show you that I painted it down into water. I put a strip of water across, and then I painted the rock on top of that, and it gives it a beautiful soft edge on the bottom. It looks like the water is running, you know, running into it and running up on it. All right, I'm just working my way around this surf here that came over the rock. Just delicate. There's some small shapes where the rocks are peeking through. So just take your time, you know, use a nice pointed brush and just get some, you know, a little bit at a time, and you'll get some nice movement in that, and that's what you're looking for. All right, I'm putting the shadow in here. This is, I'm using a little tiny bit of, well, ultramarine and phthalo blue mixed to get this nice shadow, get these rocks sitting down. Keep the edges soft. And movement, you can drop some nice, you can drop some cobalt blue teal in the middle of that. And like this, I'm putting a strip of water there. Now I'm going to paint those rocks on the outside. All right, that was just keeping those a little cooler, a little more on the dark side with some cobalt blue in there, but you can't see it here, but on the video. But you can see how it comes down into the water that I put there, and that gives it a nice edge on the bottom. So you just pick up that drip, give it a little bit of an upward push, and you'll get a nice sense of surf. All right, I'm going to go in and do a little calligraphy on this rock where the cracks and crevices are. That's kind of the star of the show there, so you want to take your time with it and, you know, pay attention to the edges, you know, those top edges. You can see some dark areas where the light isn't hitting it, you know, the light's in the front. But those little pieces of dark on the side really help give this rock some form. So you want to pay attention to that. And then just do as you want, you know, just make it. All right, so I'm putting a little more in there. That's the cobalt blue teal. I'm just putting some spots out there. Get a little more movement. All right, I'm gonna spatter some water. Just spattering the water all over these rocks, and pat it, and then wipe it, and you'll get some nice sense. See, it looks like, you know, the bubbles, it looks like some foam bursting up. All right, I apologize for that streak of light coming down. That's coming through the window, the sun. All right, finally, I'm using a little bit of gouache, just a tiny bit here, where the foam is coming up over the rocks here, and you need a little bit of a splash, you know, not a lot, but little drips here and there jumping up, and that's what gives it movement. See, but use it sparingly, and you know, and then as it comes down here on the shadow side of the rocks, you want to mix that with some ultramarine blue and gray the white down, so it's not getting any sun, so it's all shadow. Okay, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I will see you again very soon. Thanks for watching.